So we left off yesterday. We were picking up our Skyline back from Peyton's, and now we just got to move some cars around because our SR20 block is done at the machine shop. So just got to move out the chaser here so we can get our engine hoist out, which is currently boxed in. We got to pull our other SR off the stand to make room for the new one, and then pull our seat out of the R34 because we're going to use that just to pick it up real quick. Don't feel like taking the truck. Little much to drive around most of the time. So start moving stuff around and hop over to that. All right, everything's all off and apart, so now we can get off to the machine shop at MWR and pick up our short block. We are back at the house. We got our seat back in the Skyline over here. We got our new engine on the stand. Had to use the hoist, but that's all set. Have a couple things to do. Then we are going to start assembling this motor. I will jump to where we left off on the last motor. So we're going to start getting the head on and then start torquing up the head studs. Hopefully we can get this into the car by tomorrow. We're still waiting on our trans bits, but could still get all that in, then just shoot the trans jack later to put it in the trans. So now we have our head on. No issues with torquing this time. These are the Mazwork studs, so you bottom out the studs by hand, and then there's two torque sequences. You're going to have a 45 foot-pound and then a 65 foot-pound. And then you cannot forget, you have two little guys in here. These are long ones. There's one on the outside here and another towards the back here. This is just to help prevent some leaks. So now we can get the rest of this motor together and potentially back in the car. All right, so once you get your head on, you're going to be dropping in all of your lifters, putting on your guides and shims, and then your rocker arms. So then you have to place on your camshafts. So the exhaust side is going to have a longer pin here, and you can just rest it on lightly, but the lobes are going to be pointing both outwards, so intake cam to the left and exhaust to the right. So we're going to get these all torqued up, and then we can start to time our engine and pretty much get this all buttoned up. So now that the cams are all torqued up, these are going to go to 96 inch-pounds, which is about 8 foot-pounds. The range is 6.5 to 8, so we just went with the more because you definitely don't want these cams coming loose. So now we just need to get our chain on and our other gear. Left this one off when I took apart the motor, but we will double check the torque on this bolt. So it would have been a little harder to do the timing with the one cam gear on, but you do typically want to start with your non-tensioner side, which is going to be our exhaust. So you'll grab your chain. Sometimes they bind up, they're a little stiff, so. And then you're going to want to line up your dot, which you probably can't see. And then we're going to have to rotate our cam. And then there's that side, and then you do the same for this. And then there you have it, and then we can kind of rotate these to feel where they're at and make sure they're where they want them to sit. You'll tighten up these main cam gear bolts, and then we can pop our tensioner in here, and then that's going to take all this slack out of here. So what I actually had to do to get this bolt to line up, you just have to kind of move your cam back and forth a little bit, and then it'll line up. You can put everything on. This is where we're going to torque it. This is like 106 to 116 foot-pounds. So we'll get our torque wrench out, hold our cam gears, and knock these tight. I'm gonna grab a shorter socket for this guy just so we don't walk off the socket. I had to just hold the motor pretty crazy to get this to tighten up, but we got both of these tight, 116 foot-pounds, and then what we did is we found our slack. We moved it around this side of the chain and this side. So now if you look down in here, this is where our tensioner is, our slack. So when we do put on our tensioner, all the slack is going to be taken up there. You're not going to have a bunch of bouncing around in the middle, because if you don't do this and you have that dead spot, there's a huge amount of slack here, and then you could eventually move your timing. So we got a baseline of our tensioner set. We left our lock nut loose. So we're gonna turn this over and make sure nothing contacts. The amount of play we're looking for is gonna be a 1/4 inch from here. So the chain may slack or unslack, and we can undo our tensioner to compensate where we want it. So we'll start turning over our motor for the first time and see how it feels. So you can see where it's slacked up here. And that's what I was talking about, to where you do need to start adjusting your tensioner. And here, move back. So now we can adjust our tensioner. Gonna need to get a socket cap bolt for that, but I'll get this set and we should be pretty set to go. So this is gonna be the best demonstration. So you can see it's kind of 2 1/4 inch, and then you push it up and we're about 2 1/2. So we can kind of go smidge more, and you can see the chain move. And we just want to be right within that range. So you can see how it adjusts here. And you do want to push up pretty hard because the engine is going to be under quite a bit of stress. And that's pretty good there. Can maybe go a little more. Yeah, see how we just barely overshot it. So we'll just back it off, and there we go. So now this is set, and we can lock down our lock nut on the tensioner. So I ended up retiming this a couple times. It seemed that there's a little bit too much slack on the right side, and it wanted to hop. So I got this all set, redid our chain tension, and we're putting in our casts. So for this, there's a little mark here on the body, and then there's 2 dots. So if you line it up with the right dot, when you push it in here, it should end up lining up with the left dot. So let's see if we can do this without moving the engine. And if you look in there, those line up pretty decently. So you can just kind of barely spin the cast, or just do it. It's a standalone car, so we do get to just modify the offset in the computer. So a little bit of discrepancy is not a big deal, but if you want to get it perfect for a stock car, you can try this for quite a bit. But we'll get this bolted on. A few other things we could check over, but I think I'm going to throw on the valve cover just to get this all sealed up, and then just go over everything else, intake manifold, exhaust, etc. Alright, got our engine all sealed up for the most part, so gonna take a break for today, come back tomorrow, and a couple seconds for you guys, and we'll be right back. Just stopped at the parts store, so we got some of these Iridium IX plugs. So these are gonna be what we're basically using in every car, no matter what it is, because these are probably the best plugs that you can get in most cases. So I'm just gonna gap these down, and we'll put them in the motor, and do have a little gapping tool, so I'll show you that and jump over here. So take this, put your spark plug in here, turn down this knob, and you're going to be able to accurately gap your plug versus just tapping it on like an anvil or something. So we're going to pre-prime our engine by filling up our filter housing with oil beforehand. You do need a part number for the filter. It is going to be, for K&N at least, HP 1003. So we'll just start pouring oil in here, pop on our filter, and then we can pop back up the motor how it's supposed to be. And we made a little mess. So we're going to try to tilt this the other way and see if it's a little easier that way. So that should be a good enough mess for now. And you take some of your oil over here, lube up your O-ring, spin this guy on there. So now we can just take rags, brake clean this all up, make it look like new. Alright, so I just finished putting together everything on the motor, so we'll take a look at it. A lot of just tedious things down here, all these coolant pipes here and here. We got our turbo setup on, all the lines on. We did have some burning here on our heat sleeving, so we may remake our coolant lines and like hard piping down the line. But we'll just save that for now since we already have this. Intake manifold we had to clean out. There was metal inside. And yeah, coils, all the basic stuff. So shouldn't be missing anything else. Got our engine brackets on, just got to put this on the hoist, and then we can toss her in here. So sling this up, take off our middle core support now that it's removable, and should just pop right in. Alright, loosely set in here. We just gotta pop our engine mounts in the bottom between the bracket and the subframe on each side. Just make sure everything fits without scratching too much stuff doing this solo. But yeah, almost complete. And mission complete. Had to do some finagling, moving everything around, but got in these mounts. Just gonna tighten up the nuts off camera, but you can see they're sitting where they're supposed to. That bolt's kinda out some more, but the nuts are on the bottom, so everything's located fine. And then it doesn't look like we scratched up the bay at all, so that's good. Good turbo clearance, so the tubs aren't going to really get in the way. I might weld a 90 on there, but pretty good so far. Might do a forward main mount intercooler, but still waiting on our radiator, so we have to see where that sits first. We're back from Christmas. We do have a couple more parts to put on, so we have our outer tie rods here that we've been waiting on. We have a new heat shield for our brake master. This is going to be from English Tune. Pretty simple install, slotted holes. And then we still have to put on the rest of our chase spades, power steering line kit, and the cooler. So we'll unbox all this in a bit, but I'm going to start off with the heat shield since that's the most simple. You just got two 12mm nuts. We're going to loosen that up, slide this over, and hopefully our downpipe still fits. Alright, so we needed to put a little bend in it here just to kind of clear all this, but we'll have plenty of room for our downpipe now. We have our lines protected in there, and then you can see it's just slid behind the washers on both of the nuts. So I'll get this tightened up. That'll all be set. We can move over to, we got to put on our power steering pump still on the engine, so that's not going to happen right away. And we'll pop that on and just start routing where our lines are going to go. Need to mount the new reservoir somewhere in this area, so I might have to pop back on the upper core support as well. Here's going to be our chase bay kit with this is our reservoir in this box. This is our cooler. This is our special bolt that's going to go into the pump. So that we're just going to remove this guy here, and this is going to interface with this one banjo fitting here, if you guys can make it out. And we'll just go over what all goes in. So like these long guys go into the rack here and here. And then we have, this is our suction fitting. This is gonna be on the low pressure side from the reservoir to the pump itself. So I'll just get this all unboxed. We'll start routing in our lines and end up mounting our cooler somewhere in this vicinity. Alright, so your order of operations for this kit, they're gonna want you to do your high pressure line first. This is going to be your suction line. Actually, they want this done first. You can connect it to your reservoir where you're going to mount it. I'm still working all this up because it's a custom bay. Do your high pressure line. And then this guy is going to be your low pressure. I do have the oil cooler kit, so we're going to have to mount that. And this would typically go back to the reservoir, but if you have a cooler, you go to the cooler and then back to the reservoir from that. So when you do these lines, it's a little easier if you do the port fittings into the rack first and then just put the AN after that. So this second fitting here, that's closer to the subframe, and it's a little lower. That's going to be your high pressure, and then this is your low pressure here. So there's not a lot of info online about that, but they are two different size fittings. But if you mix up your hoses, because they're both -6, that could be your issue. I think I still have to tighten back up these guys because I loosened them up putting in the motor, but we're not running it right now, so it's not too high of a priority. So yeah, I'm gonna get back out of here. We're gonna mount our cooler up and finish up all these lines. So it took a little bit of mounting time, but we did get our power steering cooler mounted. We ended up just drilling larger holes to make like a bulkhead style. And now everything is all hidden in here. It still gets airflow from the bumper duct, so that's going to be good. I am going to 3D print and model a design for our reservoir, so that way we can kind of bolt it right here, and then we're going to have like a tube clamp style mount. So I just need to design something for these bolt pattern. This is a 7mm bolt with 32mm spacing. So I'm going to make that come up, and then it's going to be like a half circle on this side with like nut retainers in it to put like a lock nut in the backside. And then we're going to come in from the front, another half circle, and then that's where our bolt or screw is going to go through. And that should be sufficient enough to mount this. It's not heavy, shouldn't be bouncing around too much, and should just clamp the tube pretty tight without scuffing it all up. So I'm going to go inside, do that, possibly finish this up tomorrow, as this probably take 4 hours to print that, depending on how big I make it. But overall, all the fitting stuff's looking pretty good so far, so shouldn't have any issue with that. And yeah, cool beans. So just a quick glimpse on the CAD side. I just made this quick little doodad in Fusion. So I only had room for the one bolt here because I made the top too short to be able to fit the bolt hole. So we'll see how it mounts with a single bolt, but we'll printing it now and give it a shot how it mounts. Okay, so we actually finished up with our print in like an hour or so. We did have some bad bed adhesion on this side, but a couple cents to reprint this. So we're just gonna see how this fits overall. So actually wraps the tube really nice. And then this is kind of how it's going to mount. So even without a bolt there, it's still holding pretty good. And then I did throw a little, if I can show you, little hex cutout so I can slide a nut in there and not have to hold it with a screw or socket, whatever. So I'll see if my bolt's long enough. I'll test fit this and we can see how it fits with the reservoir. So here's going to be our pattern for that, which pretty close, should fit. Alright, so our holes do line up and everything. Making this the exact size hole of the hardware it's too small. So I've pretty much got to enlarge all these holes. I do need to get longer bolts for this, and also the hex on the back. The 11mm socket fits on the nuts, but I made this hole 11mm, and the nut doesn't fit. So we probably have to go a little more. That way there's room for error with the print, and then that gives us the chance to reprint both of these. So overall, decent first print, and version 2 should be better. Alright, revision number 2. We got our bolt fitting in here. I just went and picked something up. They only had pretty long ones, so I can't trim this down. And then now we got this side as well. We'll kind of stick this on here just to kind of show you guys. And now the nut actually fits in here too. So it's not like super tight, just because I went over, just to make sure it fits all the way. But that'll hold it. We can get this all mounted up. I already checked these holes, so these fit. And now we can just mount our reservoir right here. All right, so the only thing left I have to do is like tighten up our cooler. I have just one bolt loosely in there. All of our lines are tight. You can see the overall height of this isn't too high, so we're definitely going to clear our core support, which means our hood will clear. So no worry about that. And then it's just going to be small stuff here and there. We still got to put on our tie rods, so I'll probably jump over to that and then just start rerouting our boost lines for our boost controller. I'm probably going to switch it out to a newer Mac valve. This is like one of those old DIY auto-tune ones, which still works fine, but if you do forget the diagram, it is very hard to find that online, and I don't have it written down. So just more stuff to clean it up, get like a small little billet bracket for it, because I don't believe you can find a bracket for those ones anymore either. And then yeah, just button it all up. All right, we got the wheels mounted, our outer tie rod set up, started to route our main chassis harness for the lights and everything. Just a few things here and there, alternators mounted up. So just little by little, we're putting this whole thing together. Hopefully have it on the ground soon. Still got our empty area as we're waiting on our trans parts. But yeah, for the most part, should be done as far as this video. Hopefully we'll have our other parts soon, and we can start getting the car actually together and running, hopefully within the month or so. So yeah, we'll catch you guys in the next one.